This is precisely the kind of phenomenon with which we are familiar in all kinds of societies, both in ancient times and, in fact, down to the present time as well. Witch doctors, shamans, seers, all manner of things. And these things have not, by the way, have not disappeared from the face of the earth at all. As some of you might know, some of you may not know, but these things are out there. And in fact, from what I have heard recently, there is an uptick in interest in such things, especially amongst the younger generation, let's say teenagers, people in their 20s, in the Western world. And this is an interesting point to ponder for a moment. Why would that be? And in a nutshell, the answer is, I believe, that the current state of Western civilization is such, it is so anti-human and so bereft of any significance and meaning, and human beings are not designed to live without any sense of purpose or meaning or challenge. That is also part of the equation, by the way. The more luxurious and affluent a society becomes, the more bored and disinterested and disaffected and depressed people become. Human beings are genetically even designed to react to a situation or to live within a situation in a, you could call it, if you like, an evolutionary match, which challenges them, which involves difficulties, and which requires the person to expend great effort. Or, to quote a certain Australian Prime Minister from way, way back, I think this was in the 1970s, his name was, I'm not sure I remember his name right now. I do recall he was from the Liberal Party as opposed from the Labour Party. And he famously said, before leading up to an election, that life was not supposed to be easy. That was the quote. And you may realize or assume that this did not go down very well with the electorate, and he lost the election in a big way. But he spoke the truth. Not because he was a great philosopher or genius, but because he simply recognized the simple fact. So people nowadays do seek out all kinds of distractions and all kinds of meaning. There are people, for example, I'm aware of in various countries, who, being so lost and directionless within this current phase of Western culture or subculture, and the Western world is clearly if in no other terms, at least in spiritual and intellectual terms, in a state of decay. People will definitely search for something. So some of these people, and it's usually the more spiritually attuned and intellectual types, actually, because the more materialistic and less intellectual type of person can lose themselves in that world of luxury and distractions and whatever it is that the television serves up, and they can quiet their need for some meaning in life by being the fan of a particular football club or team or sport or something or other. But more serious people need something beyond that. So some of these people, I'm aware of the life stories of certain people who have spoken about their experiences. They went into paganism, witchcraft, all sorts of strange things. Eventually, they realized that's not for real, and there's nothing there, and they went looking for some religious revelation. And increasingly, interestingly, among some of these people, particularly in the UK, in Europe, they're turning to Orthodox Christianity, which they identify as the more serious, the more ancient, the more serious, and the more mystical type of Christianity, which is true. And another option for some of these people is excuse me, is the Catholic Church for all similar reasons.
Rabbi,
Yes.
do you think the fact that certain people have begun to readopt certain pagan practices, do you think that changes the reality about certain pagan religions, about in the sense of them not used to being practiced and the halachic implications of those religious ideas being completely gone from the world? Do you think what's happening now is enough to bring them back, or is it enough of a fringe that it's just
You would have to be more
significant?
specific, I think. But it's what I just said is factually true, but it's also needs to be pointed out that it's not a mass phenomenon. It is not something that has mass appeal. It's as I said, the more intellectual, the more talented, the more spiritual people are the ones who take these things more seriously and therefore search for something. And each perhaps or finds or does not find, but some of them do find something that speaks to them. But so, to the extent that these things have been revived and resuscitated in the current Western, within the current Western paradigm, to that extent, these things exist. Yes, they do.
I was thinking about visiting archaeological ruins versus visiting Bate Avodah Zarah. When
Mm.
does one transition from the other? Or is it the fact that they're already ruins? It's kind of already muvutal since it's broken apart.
I think you would need to. Excuse me. I think you would need to take it on a case by case basis. In other words, if you know that a certain site is being visited and has become a focal point for people following some of these newfangled religions or old-fangled religions and systems of belief or practice. If that's the case, then that particular place would have to be considered asur, I think. Whereas if it's mainly an archaeological site and a tourist attraction, which I think, for example, is true, as far as I know, of a place like Stonehenge, then it's just an interesting artifact. It's not considered a Beth Avodah Zarah. Anyhow, I'm not even sure we know exactly what Stonehenge was all about. I'm not sure anyone does. Although it's not at all far-fetched to suggest that such a place had at least some connection with practices that we would define as Avodah Zarah. On the other hand, I'm not aware of that place or similar sites today being places of pilgrimage or meeting for such people. Perhaps I'm just not in the know, and maybe that is not the case. And if it is not the case, and if these places have once again become specific points of sites of Avodah Zarah related practices, then yes, I think it would apply.